You don't necessarily need to understand what is being said, but your heart does understand.
And it turned out this was a teenager who was listening to a band called Slipknot. They wear masks and I don't know, it's heavy metal music. And somehow that inspired this kid to take a machine gun, go out to school and shoot as many people as he could.
On the one hand, with 432, you have something that basically, heals, a frequency that literally heals the body and restore the cells, broken cells, and, it heals the body. It's not just an image or a poetic thing. It's literally heals the body. And the other one, for 440 hertz, that one, it's the opposite. When you listen, when you listen to that, you are driven away from love.
Music cannot be heard without the breath or wind or air or water, matter such as water or the physical body. So music exists in relation to our existence. Similar to how Africans viewed the concept of God. God exists because of our awareness.
But music, used to be used by our ancestors to heal the body. They had different frequencies, different tones, and each tone basically will be targeting a certain area to heal it, to repair it. But unfortunately, today, people like you and I, we just listen to the music, not knowing whether the frequencies and the vibrations that are coming to us, whether they are good for us or not. Hello and welcome to the Self-Upgrade podcast. We're going to talk about music, but not, just music for the sake of entertainment. We're going to talk about healing music. Because as Africans, our traditions, our cultures, music has a central place in Africa, in our communities. So today, our guest, our brother Makara, is here and he's going to, to tell us about our relationship with music, how music has been used, ancestrally in Africa and also nowadays, from a spiritual perspective, but also from a healing perspective. And we will also talk about the fact that, the music that our ancestors were using, it was grounded, that music that could heal your body and could put you in a vibration that was good for you. That music, if we look today, the type of music that we are being served, we are very far from that. So we will be talking about all of that. But first of all, let's welcome our guest, Brother Makara.
Good evening and hello to you, Sister Aïdah, and your viewers.
My brother, I'm really pleased to have you here because we've been in the same community. I joined MONE, I think it's been like 6 months now. And we never really had the opportunity to engage like we have last time. And it was really powerful because, we connect in so many levels. And, that's what led to this discussion today. So, Brother Makara, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also about your career in the music industry, please?
It's never easy for one to tell one story, but I'll try make it succinct. So I was born in the province of South Africa called the Free State. It's right next to Lesotho. My mother, in fact, is from Lesotho. Born and bred in South Africa in that sense. Shortly after the Witchcraft Suppression Act, the third enactment was, passed. And obviously this is in the late 70s, during apartheid, which I never got to really see, feel, or experience. but I grew up in the Free State, and when we got to finish primary school, I was sent to boarding school in Joburg, and it was there where I now suddenly found myself in an environment where I came from a world where we spoke Sesotho and moved to an environment where there was a melting pot of cultures and languages. But school naturally predominantly insisted on us speaking English, unfortunately, which does have a cost. In one's life as you get older and you have children, because the end result of that is I was obviously told at school that we have to speak English, and you and the entire school, you start speaking English to each other. And by the time you are out of school in university, you realize that there's more people like you, and it becomes life, and you end up thinking in English and until you have kids. But be that as it may, I then, in high school, some friends of mine and I, at the time, we had decided that we're not going to get a job. We're not going to get jobs. We're not going to get employed. And we decided that we will figure it out when we get there. So fast forward beyond school, 2 years into my university studies, the question comes up again. And somehow we decided to go into the entertainment business, primarily music and event management. We were so fortunate that there was just the three of us, young boys with loads of ideas, passion for music, and we came across quite a number of elders who were either in corporate. Actually, all of them were pretty much in corporate, and others were small at the time, at least, management agencies for artists and creatives. And I don't know if it was just our passion, or maybe it was early on. This was around 95, 96, no, late 90s actually, 99, more like 99, where we started getting projects. This is 3 years after we started the business. I guess the first 3 years were just building our confidence as well as a network. And suddenly we started coming across people that took a liking to us, to a point where we started getting offered work opportunities, contracts to go and promote short message texting, to go host. One of the big things that we did was we were asked to be responsible for a soccer tournament. I think the first of its kind at the time, called the Vodacom Challenge. So it was two big South African teams and two continental teams. And our responsibility was everything within the stadium, outside the stadium, except for the actual match itself. So naturally, that is mostly music led, or there's promotions, there's music involved, or there's curating artists that will perform prior to the match, during the halftime, post the match, and would have an after party in another stadium close by with major artists and acts and bands. And through that, we developed relationships with the artists themselves. And a few of them actually wanted us to manage them. So without knowing much about it, we took them on, and we started realizing that an artist puts out an album or a few songs, you are guaranteed to get calls. With enough airplay, you're guaranteed to get calls for booking. So there isn't much work there. You literally like a PA. So the question then became, how do we get deeper into the space and add value to the artists? So some of the celebrities or personalities that we started managing were on television, but were not artists. So there was that question of how do we ensure that these guys, yes, they're well-known faces, they don't put out music. What do we create for them that will create a demand? And with the artists, obviously, when they go in studio, it would be a matter of, because now we're responsible for you, we have to be present in some of the sessions and start giving input. And that's really how it started. I wasn't trained musically or anything of the sort, but I was able to give advice, chip in with how backing vocals should go, for example, and the likes. And again, had the sense to musically suggest, as much as I can't read music. And this was before I became a drummer. So that's really how we got into it, and really grew. Got to do quite a lot of amazing and memorable events. We've worked with the likes of Ladysmith Black Mambazo. We took them on tour when they were turning, I think, 40 as a band, but they had not performed in South Africa in 20 years at the time. We were able to take them on tour, and that in itself unlocked other opportunities that got us to do work for people like Oprah Winfrey and Nelson Mandela. And yeah, we just grew from strength to strength until I realized that the core of our business is music, and music studio sessions are one thing. You do that however long it takes. Once it's done, it's peddling the music, performances, radio appearances, and the likes. And that became taxing at some point to me personally, because you're always on the road. Yes, one got to travel and see a bit of the world, but you're constantly on the move. Fortunately, I was a young single guy at the time, so I had the time to accommodate it. It was only when I started approaching my late 20s that I thought to myself, this can't be life. Yes, South Africa at the time was a beautiful period in that it's post-94. We're in our early 20s. There's a sense of freedom, despite not knowing what oppression was like. And it was a happy time.
I love, the whole, the story that you are telling, but there's something that you said. You said Free State.
The Free State province.
Free State. So can you?
Yes.
Can you just explain? Because as someone who, as an outsider from South Africa, I don't know much about South Africa. When I hear about apartheid, I thought it was the whole country that was, that was concerned. I didn't know that there was such thing as a free state. So can you tell us, like?
Oh no, not in the literal sense. It was just the name of the province. Those who wrestled the land out of our hands would name them after themselves.
Okay, yeah, because
I don't even know why the province was called the Free State.
It wasn't actually free. Themselves. It wasn't actually free. It was just called Free State.
It was called Free State.
Yeah, when you said that you didn't know about oppression, so during the apartheid, you didn't basically.
So it was a small town. Well, obviously it's grown now, and yes, the laws were in place. There was segregation because I grew up in what is called a township, where it was designated for African people, away from town. Therefore, you had to travel to get to town, to get to work, etc. That's where the big stores were.
Okay.
So not interacting a lot with the non-melanated people, I did not experience it. As much as I did have friends that, my father's friends had children, and I spent weekends with them. We owned a farm next door to one of them. Through one of them, actually, that enabled us to get the farm, acquire the farm. So from that point of view, I didn't experience it. There were just other people, there are people like you and
Okay. I mean, I know that, this is not the topic that we are here to talk about. But, when I heard Free State, I was just puzzled, I needed to know more about that.
It's just the name of the province. It's just the name of the province. All right.
So now
that's all that was to it.
So back to our topic.
Yes.
Your story, like you entered the music industry, first as, to be involved in events. And, like you said, you worked with people like Mandela and Oprah. So just organizing basically events around those people. And then, and then you became a drummer.
So it was, as I was questioning myself about, is this the rest of my life? I got to a point where I guess I got the answer that no, this is not the rest of my life. The money was good. Don't get me wrong. In your early 20s and you're working on those sort of events, really the premier, the cream of the crop, money was really good. But it gets to a point where it's the norm and you want more. So that was not enough to convince me to stick around, just because I'm making good money. What was more important was being in a space where I could hear myself think, especially. Because I was the kind of guy that you would not want if you were playing 30 seconds. Anything to do with movies, pop culture, don't talk to me. And I was that guy, in a group, I'd be the quietest, but the moment you ask me a question, I would give you a response that nobody saw coming, but I wouldn't be able to back it up and explain why I think that way. So approaching my 30s, I decided to leave, sold my shares, moved to Cape Town, and that's where I woke up, if you will. So I moved to Cape Town, and in Cape Town at the time, I had no friends. I didn't know a single soul, except for a few clans that we had, but I was not that close to them to hang out with them. Until a friend of mine invited me who had just moved down also, invited me to a barbecue. And I met a few guys who happened to speak my language. And in our conversations, I'd be my usual self. I'll say things, and then somebody would be like, "Have you read this book? Have you seen that documentary? Have you?" And so I started getting exposed to all this material that suddenly made sense of how I think. Not only was I validated, but I was given context into why I would see something the way I see it, in a way that I can then explain. And that's when I guess I started making sense of myself and how I think, understanding things like why television didn't really matter to me since childhood. I still don't have a TV in a house. And I then got exposed to a lot of material, documentaries and books. And that's how I really came to, I guess, the person that I am now, where I started understanding myself. And I was able to then, explain my thinking and logic with references.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful journey because, like you said, for instance, when you were talking, I found myself in your journey because, I used to work in corporate, as a marketing consultant, I was doing great. But, some events and some things that happened in my life started to open my eyes. Like, is this really the life that I want to live? Is this really, do I want to stay here and, climb the corporate ladder, the way they say? Or do I need to go and really search for, look for myself, like, understand who I am? Do I need, because
Right.
I was struggling with the fact that, I was working, most of my clients were in the financial industry, and other clients, I mean, they didn't have anything meaningful. There was no meaning to what they were doing according to my values, you know and I used to basically try to find, like, oh, let's have a charity campaign, or just stuff like that, that actually was bringing meaning to
Has
something
meaning.
that didn't really have meaning. So, when we all, I think we all go through that, you know as we grow, we start to look at our lives and be like, okay, is this it? Is this, like, my whole
Well,
entire life? Am I going to do this? So I love that, and thank you for sharing that as well. And now to go back to our topic, the music industry. First of all, my brother, can we talk about, the place that music in general plays in our culture, in our African cultures and tradition? Can you just, from not now, but, from the roots of our culture?
yes. Well, they say life is breath, right? And breath is, on a universal notion, it would be the wind, it would be the air. And if life is breath, there would be no sound without air, without breath, without wind, or even a solid structure like the body, or solid matter, or matter such as water, right? Which means that we ourselves are resonant with music. And with what I'm learning, at least from ancient Africa, is that there's always balance in everything. And in this sense, the music begins from the very moment you start forming in your mother's womb. Her heartbeat could translate to that. Her walking, each step, if you are walking a certain distance, your rhythm, there's rhythm in your step. And as she goes on about her daily life, walking or pounding, there's rhythm in everything, and rhythm is music, which also helped me realize that it seems there's always balance, of course, like I said. So there's always the masculine and the feminine energy. But what I found through music is when you are creating music, or when you're performing music, you are required to become vulnerable. And vulnerability is a quality that's often associated with the feminine energy. It's emotive, it's emotion. And therefore, to be to be vulnerable, to be able to allow yourself to be vulnerable, it's not often an easy thing, especially if you're a group of people. Say I'm a session musician for that song, or for that recording, or for that performance. These are people that I'm not used to that well, and you still have to be vulnerable, allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I realized that in most scenarios that I've been in, there's always at least been one female, which I always say carries our vulnerability to a point where we are comfortable to let it out. So that, because you have to essentially suspend what you know. Once you get into on stage or into studio, you may have been practicing for the past 10,000 hours, but once you get there, you have to suspend what you know and flow with what is being created. So it's not about you bringing something that you did yesterday or a month ago, but it's about what is needed right here, right now, in this moment. And that vulnerability, from my point of view, tends to require a feminine energy to almost like cradle you, to allow yourself to for the music to express itself through you, because you're pretty much a conduit, really. So there was never really music. I mean, a moment without music in Africa. In times of peace, in times of celebration, war, and sadness. Whether it's a funeral, there's songs that go with that. In times of war, for the regiments, on their march, there's a song to it. Of course, in celebration, in moments of peace, when you're going on about your business, often mothers or anybody will be humming to something in their minds. So music has always been part of it. But slightly deeper than that, music goes hand in hand with nature. Again, balance. So, for example, in us or our forefathers creating a drum, which was the first musical instrument, I believe, it was a matter of connecting nature, bringing a tree, a plant, with an animal in the form of a skin for the drum head, which demonstrated, again, the depth and understanding of our imagination and thinking, our oneness with nature and general overall surroundings. And it also kind of shows you that animals were revered. We understood, we'd taken the time to actually look and study and understand animals, as well as plants. Hence, we had domesticated animals and we had plants. We knew what to eat for nutrition, what to use for medicinal purposes, and therefore knew which trees were most resonant for the purpose of making a drum. Like specific trees such as mahogany, iroko, mukau tend to be a bit dense for the drum shell. And if you're thinking of the head, which is the skin that you beat on, goat and cow, for example, are stronger skins. So they were a sure bet. But also deeper than that, if you look at animals like antelopes and zebras and other type of animals, their skin brought certain unique tonal sounds and qualities. So just initially, just that ability to bring the two species together, a plant and an animal, and know what you're going to get out of it, and carving it in itself, it's art before you make art with the drum. So that's the kind of depth that we're talking to. And it's really, for me, it's another example of divinity in motion, which obviously is informed by our rootedness in cosmology. And interestingly enough, the word that we would use for a shallow or equivalent of God in Sesotho is Modimo, which actually translates to the root of a human. So again, roots, the trees, it's all connected. The same way as cultivating. Women were the agrarians, and they managed the land and food production and processing. Again, in times like those, when you work in the field, there was a song to it. And out of that, I'd like to think that culture was developed. Culture came out of the agrarian culture, so that gave birth to the idea of agriculture. But more importantly, also the God concept, because they cultivate the land. Culture is a cultivation in itself. You don't just call yourself, let's say, Christian. You have to live a particular way, and that is the cultivation of your religion or your Christianity. Same way as from an African point of view, you live according to Ubuntu values or Ma'at values. Practicing those daily in itself is a cultivation. So this is how I think that the people who invented culture were women, because they worked the land primarily. And the whole cultural aspect is practice, daily practice. It's like gratitude. If you're grateful for life and you appreciate it, you tend to be grateful or in a state of gratitude. And again, there is music in spiritual expression, right? Which then kind of explains or enables us to get into the whole notion of rituals and ceremonies, which were essentially about summoning the ancestors to bear witness, to be present. It's an invitation for their participation or at least their witness, because it's a form of communication. And as well as an imprinting of the lesson to those that are we're speaking about rituals and ceremonies, for example, those that are undergoing or those that the ceremony is being done for or on behalf of. The practice, the culture itself is to print that in their memory that I'm no longer a boy, I'm becoming a man because I'm going through this initiation process. And there's songs that go with that will always remind you of that, because songs tend to almost like be timestamps of your life. You hear a song you haven't heard in a while, it takes you back to a certain time period. You remember where you were or what you were doing the first time you heard it. So it also has this ability to timestamp moments in our lives. But from a spiritual point of view, we have rites of passage from birth to death. When the child is born, they get named. There's a ceremony that goes with that. If there's a health challenge that one has, and you see a healer, there is some sort of a song that would get performed as part of that healing process. If you, like I was saying, transitioning from teenagehood into manhood or womanhood, there's a ceremony that goes with that. There are songs specifically for that. The dowry or the wedding negotiations, again, in some cultures, actually, how you know that the negotiations went well is the first thing somebody will ululate and burst into a song. Those that are waiting outside would know that, it went well. We didn't reach a stalemate, but actually it was a successful negotiation. And of course, weddings are full of song and dance because they're celebratory. But also the end of one's life, a funeral is incomplete without songs. So without necessarily going into too much detail, I'm just trying to give a sense of how central and integral music was and is in Africa, because till today, I don't know if I shared the story, but there's a documentary that I came across called A Language You Cry In, about the Gala people of Mississippi in the South, in the US, who were taken as slaves from Sierra Leone. And for generations, they lived and had kids in the South, in the US, until some researchers were trying to document where people, especially in the South, came from, because I think the South was one of the major ports where the slave ships came into the US from. So that's why Mississippi tends to have that large and deeper African ancestry and culture that we still see today. Be it the food, be the music, be the what they would say is voodoo, all of that. It's a lot stronger down there. And they recorded, there was this woman who used to sing the song that nobody knew what it meant. The language is foreign, but she learned it from her mother who learned it from her mother, and up to great grandmother, I think. About 3 decades past this song being recorded in Mississippi, the same team in the 1930s happened to go to Sierra Leone for anthropological work. And while they were there, decided to play the song to a group of people, unbeknown to them that was the exact family that actually were the originators of that song, because this song was a family funeral song. So, you look at the distance, thousands of kilometers apart, hundreds of years apart, a song reunited a family that was not even aware of each other a few generations later. So that's really the just to give a surface level sense of how spiritually connected we are to music.
Yeah, my brother, thank you for the in-depth explanation. That was really, I love the story. That story just shows the power of music. You don't, because you don't necessarily need to understand what is being said, but your heart does understand. I remember, because I'm a French speaker. We used to listen to, growing up, we would listen to some American music, not understanding a word of what they were saying, but we were singing along. I don't know. We were singing along sometimes, and it's only when I started to learn English that I was like, oh, so that's what she meant, or that's what he meant. You see? But, you would know that it was a love story, or, you would know that it was the person who is singing is heartbroken or whatever. You will, because music is vibration. You see? Yes, it's not about what they're saying. It's about the emotion behind, the music. And
Now, saying I, for one, as a drummer, and that's probably why I chose the drum when I moved to Cape Town, is all my favorite songs, I knew that the drum progression and the chords in the song, and the melodies. And when it comes, so I always listen to the music first. Vocals, I tend to just pick up the melody of the vocals over the music, not so much the words. I mean, songs like Michael Jackson's song that my kids will play today, and I start listening and I'm realizing, oh, that's what he actually is saying. I've known this song since childhood. I've just never picked up the words. I know the melody of the vocals, but never quite paid attention to what is actually being said. And it's only now that I'm catching up with a lot of music where I'm paying attention to what were they actually saying. And some of them are quite mind-blowing, actually, when you learn what was being said in the songs. It's just
definitely.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Definitely. And, that's why we say that music is, it's a universal language. And it's also funny that you picked up drum, or, out of all the instruments that you could have picked, you picked drum. And as Africans, drum, it's a very powerful instrument. And I believe that that's one of the first instruments that were made by our ancestors. And I was having a discussion with my an older cousin, and he was telling me, because I was like, today we have microphones, we have mobile phones as well. If there's an emergency, we can just call each other and be like, okay, there's this is happening, or just something. I mean, we have tools that help us to communicate very quickly. So I was like, at the time, how were people doing? How will they pass on messages that were, that had some emergency to them? How were they doing? And he explained to me. Let me just, tell you about what he said, and then you can take it from there. So, he told me that at the time they had different drums. They had different drum, and each rhythm, when they will be beating the drums, each one of them had a meaning. For instance, if someone passed away, they will tap on the drum a certain number of times with, a hectic rhythm. So everyone basically was used to that. They would know, oh, someone passed away. So if they were in the fields or something, people will come to the village
Yes.
to, to find out more. And they also had, other
Yes.
rhythms, like if there's a fire somewhere, it was amazing when he was telling me. And, he was even like trying to, yes, yeah, for
To
me to
beat to
understand. And
play the
it's just
rhythm for you.
amazing. So
Yeah.
music is a language, first of all. And in different parts of
Yes.
Africa, we hear about the healing tom-toms, and like, talking, I think talking drum or something like that. So basically people were using that, the drums were really talking, you know before the phones, before,
Yes.
everything. They
Yes.
could communicate from miles away, yes, using,
For
the
distance.
drums.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
very,
Yeah, the drum is foundational, I think. It may very well be the first. I also think it's the first instrument that can cover a vast area or distance versus the string instruments that would be made with the wire or the mbira. They're not as loud, but the drum is quite significantly louder. And again, like you were told, it was a matter of what type of drum is used and how it's beaten to convey a message. Even in Lesotho, memories from childhood, because literally my mother's family live on a mountain, which at the time there was no road to get to them, so we'd literally park the car on the other hill or across the river on a hill down there, and so would park our car, cross over the river, and hike upwards with our luggage, and that was normal. And you'd often have people have to talk to, from my mother's village, to needed to communicate a message to people on the other side, or down there on that village. And even how they spoke, as much as they were using words, it was melodic, because then the space, the vast space, would carry the words, but it had to be melodic and it was quite interesting to observe, especially now later as an adult, looking at it curiously to understand how would they have figured out that I can't just say, "Hey, I need you to come over tomorrow," but it would be done in such a way that there's space in between the words, for the message to, I guess, to make sense to the recipient. So, and this was not something that you're taught. Like, I probably can do it, but it's purely from observation. I wasn't taught that. So the beauty of music and the power of it is that it's natural to us. You don't necessarily have to be taught. The same way, if you look at, I mean, on social media, if you look at anything in South Africa right now, one of the first things you're going to find is kids dancing. And they're really incredibly talented. And 99% of them, it's just inborn, it's natural. They didn't go to any dance schools. Versus going to a dance school where it has to be counted into a beat for you to be able to get the choreography on time. To us, it seems to just come naturally. So it's literally in our DNA. It's not even something that you need to be taught. It's
So yeah, my brother, it's very interesting. Like, music is a language. And also when we go back to ancient Egypt, they used to use music, basically, vibrations and tones to heal the body. Because we think that music is just like, you're just playing music, it's just for us to, like, to dance and to, obviously, yes, it is also for entertainment. It's mainly for entertainment. But music, used to be used by our ancestors to heal the body. They had different frequencies, different tones, and each tone basically will be targeting a certain area to heal it, to repair it. But unfortunately, today, people like you and I, we just listen to the music, not knowing whether the frequencies and the vibrations that are coming to us, whether they are good for us or not. And unfortunately, because you know how the elite or the matrix, I don't know how you want to call them, but whatever, they have, they also know about the power of music. They know about the fact that you can add, subliminal messages behind the music to either heal the body, like I said, or to send very, very evil messages. And unfortunately, nowadays, the music that we're hearing, because, I don't know if you heard about the solfeggio frequencies. Have you already heard about the solfeggio frequencies?
Like I said, music cannot be heard without the breath or wind or air or water, matter such as water or the physical body. So music exists in relation to our existence, similar to how Africans viewed the concept of God. God exists because of our awareness, right? So I think music, in a similar way, exists with our existence, and therefore it's not something that you can really separate. But the risk with it is that it can be used against you. Like you said, and I totally agree that we don't no longer know the value and the role and the power of music. We know music for entertainment or for religious purposes or spiritual purposes even. But as a healing medium, an average person does not know that. And even conceptually, to some people, it could be hard to explain or to understand until you explain that, well, without the breath, without, the physical body or matter, music can't exist. So those who know that we don't know. And in the absence of our knowledge, they then use that against you. So, people will tell you that when the first ships landed, particularly, I'd say, in Southern Africa, the Cape of Good Hope, I guess, they'd obviously already been in other parts of the continent. But prior to them coming to the continent altogether, we'd been trading with the Chinese, we'd been trading with Indians, we'd been trading with the Portuguese and the Arabs. I'm of the opinion that by the time the Europeans came, they didn't come to discover. They knew. They were told by other nationalities that they traded with that if you want to see the land of milk and honey, that's where you have to go. So one of my own hypotheses also is that the moment they learned to sail ships and got out of Europe, they realized that they are a minority. Chinese are considered yellow. Indian people are considered brown. In fact, most of the world is brown, right? They might say Africa is black, but nobody is pale skinned. Everybody else is a shade of brown or anything else but white. So there was already an insecurity, I think. And so that gave birth to the lower vibration. Well, not gave birth, but allowed the lower vibration, the insecurity to drive them, and therefore we saw qualities like greed come up, and today music is weaponized actually to a large extent. I mean, I've heard little kids sing lyrics who was it? I think it was a Chris Brown song. If I'm not mistaken, the opening line of the song is, you can edit this out, but the opening line of the song is, pull your p- the side. I did not know that's what he's saying until I heard, I think, a 9-year-old girl, a friend of mine's niece, say it. And that's when like I said, I don't listen to the actual words, but that's when it struck me that, oh my gosh, the concept, the idea of those words is already accessible to a 9-year-old girl from a song that is played over and over and over in all radio stations. So that also kind of got me curious as to how is that allowed in the first place. I don't care who your target market is, because the song is going to be on radio. It's meant to be a single, which means it's going to be on high rotation. Who's your intended market? Because you know that children are going to listen to it. But therefore, how is it allowed? But you start realizing that it's actually weaponized for control, and makes sense why we have such highly sexualized lyrics and music videos today. It's all about profit. People talk about how the idea of sex sells. But to be quite honest, it's just a corruption and tapping into a low vibration of the frequency of music, among so many other frequencies.
In the 1940s, that's when I don't remember the family, but it's one of those big family. I think it was the Rockefeller family. I'm not sure, but that's when basically they decided to change the tone of the mainstream tone from 432 hertz to 440 hertz. 440 hertz. But the only problem is that those two frequencies are very, very different. On the one hand, with 432, you have something that's basically, heals, a frequency that literally heals the body and restore the cells, broken cells, and, it heals the body. It's not just an image or a poetic thing. It's literally heals the body. And the other one, for 440 hertz, that one, it's the opposite. When you listen, when you listen to that, you are driven away from love. You are driven away from love. So you're going to start, having low vibrational, feelings like anger, hatred, there are things that basically are not allowing you to elevate your consciousness. So they want us to, they want to keep us low. That's why they switched from 432 hertz, which was all about love and feeling, in harmony with our environment, with nature, feeling well in our bodies, feeling healthy, to 440 hertz, which is like, depression and all the negativity, basically, that comes with low vibration.
I remember as you talking, a story that I saw, I think probably on the news in the US, there was a mass shooting. And it turned out this was a teenager who was listening to a band called Slipknot. They wear masks and I don't know, it's heavy metal music. And somehow that inspired this kid to take a machine gun, go out to school and shoot as many people as he could. That's the low vibration example that just popped up now. But then the other side of it is, who has written more about love when you talk about music? It's Africans, it's African Americans.
But my brother, we know the power of words. You can speak, but once again, music in itself, without even the words, it's a language, like we said. So, even you can talk about love, but with very perverted, agenda behind. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, for instance, Chris Brown, That song you just mentioned was a love song. It was a love song, but it's more like, exposing sexuality to a very young audience. You see?
Yes.
So can we really talk about love in that sense? They want us to believe that it's love because they are talking, oh, I love you and all of that. But what is the message behind? When you look at when you watch their video clips, do you really see love? So it's all about that. I think we need to wake up.
Not at all.
We need to wake up because, like you said, that boy who was listening to that band and then decided to go and do, disastrous things. He basically was influenced because we tend to forget that, if, for instance, you are vibrating high, you are happy, you are joyful, you are generous, you tend basically to attract spirits and entities that vibrate on the same frequency.
On that same frequency.
Like angels, who will come to amplify your love, your desire to your generosity or whatever. And also, if you start to listen to music that, that is promoting, perverted sexuality and, like hatred and stuff like that, you are also going to attract entities like that.
Yes.
Entities who feed from, energies like anger, like, jealousy and things like that. So when you are, like when you have those entities as your companions, what type of things do you think will happen?
What do you expect? Totally. That's why I'm saying, if you think about it, we are the people who've written most about love. I'm talking, even if it was a sexual song, Teddy Pendergrass, Marvin Gaye, was creatively written, that you'd realize later that, oh, that's what he's talking about. Because he's the creativity in the lyrics, choice of words used, conveyed a message, but there was nothing perverse about it.
But my brother, I'm sorry, but all of those people, the people that you are mentioning there, they are all the product of the music industry. So they are being used. Yeah, beautiful words, but what is the message behind? They're just encouraging fornication. Most of them.
True. Well, that's what I was going to go to. Yes, I agree, fully agree. But my point is, there was still creativity to convey that compared to how it is today. Even the music videos. I mean, today we live in a time of where music is like fast food. There'll be a great song that comes out, and a few months later, not even a few months later, a few weeks later. In fact, I learned that 80,000 songs get uploaded on a daily basis on the SPs. These music platforms, 80,000 songs a day. That is a lot of music that none of us can listen to throughout, in a lifetime. You can never catch up with that. But when you look at the business behind that, is you start seeing an agenda that is at play. This fast food music, as you're starting to enjoy a song, a new one is on. So this is old. Whereas when I was growing up, when I was younger, in the 90s even, I knew that artists took about 4 years to develop a whole new body of work, which gave us enough time to really appreciate and know a whole album from first song to the last song, and every single progression of every single song and every lyric, and every bridge, because you had the time to consume it and really appreciate it. Today, like I'm saying, 80,000 songs and they're on high rotation. The IQ of the listener has been reduced. The same way they'll say younger kids today have a short attention span, right? They YouTube shorts or these reels where they'll condense a 2-hour long conversation into a minute, because nobody has the time anymore to listen to watch an hour-long podcast. They'll chop it down to 2 minutes, give you the key essence, but without much context. So you start realizing that the business of music is where the problem lies. It's the same way as if we took hip hop as an example. The foundations thereof was positive. It was all about reflecting society to itself, commenting, social commentary on what's happening, or educating, right? Whereas, that's how it started. But as time went, the business realized that they had the power to dictate to the artists what kind of music to make. But now there's a story that in the 90s, right about the time where we started seeing this switch from conscious hip hop to thug rap and your puff daddies with their high fashion and alcohol and overly sexualized lyrics and videos. It was also the same time or just before, we started seeing the rise of gangster rap. And it turns out during that period, a bunch of prisons, if I'm not mistaken, were privatized in the US. And the same people who had in huge investments in the music business invested in the prison system, in the private prisons. And they realized that if they shut down the conscious music and promoted the gangster rap, it would, in the same way the conscious hip hop impacted on the community. Simple example is, what's his name? Rodney. There was a televised beating of a man. I think his name was Rodney Jr. somebody that said, why can't we all just get along? And riots erupted in the US, I think it was in Chicago. And that's how your groups like NWA had that song, about the police. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No. You know what? I'm not really.
Police?
I've never been into rap music. Growing up in France, obviously they are the popular songs everybody knows. But I was not like a big fan of. But recently, my husband was. I'm sure that if you had asked that question to my husband, he'll be like, "Of course I know," because recently, basically, he came to me. He was like, "Yeah, there's this concert. There's a rap or hip hop artist who's coming. Let's go. Let's have some fun." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah. Who is that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's KRS-One." And I never heard the name before. I mean, I knew the guy without even knowing his name. So we went. When you were talking about conscious rap music, I didn't, we went to that concert and I left completely transformed. Like,
now that's a teacher.
Yes. Oh
that's
my God.
That's a different breed.
Oh my goodness.
Of artistry.
It was just amazing. Like, that's what music should be. That's what music should be. Something uplifting. Something that actually forces you to go inside of yourself and analyze yourself, because that's exactly what he was doing. I left you.
He was teaching.
Yes,
he teaches.
For like, a week. I was just, I was vibrating so high when I was thinking about him. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't, I've been to many concerts before, but that one, it was the first experience like that one. And I want more of that. But unfortunately, it's very rare to find a conscious, artist like him.
And it's not by accident.
Exactly. That's what he was, that's what he was explaining. That, when they saw that actually, all the artists of his time, that they were there to teach and to tell their story in a way, like, to basically to raise awareness of what was happening in the hoods. And then when, like you said, those popular artists came, and now they have changed everything. They are controlling everything. even the message that, the artists are going to sing, that they have to be told, like, you can't sing about this, because that's the thing. That's why I was saying,
Yes.
all those artists that we're talking about, they are being controlled. None of them is free
Or suppressed.
Yes.
Yes.
Even if they are against something, or they want to sing, a song to basically, to talk about, for instance, look at what is happening in Gaza right now. You see, I'm sure that there are many artists that would love to talk about, that, and, express how they're feeling about it. Like DJ Khaled. DJ Khaled is a Palestinian. And the guy...
is he saying anything?
Sorry?
What is he saying about it?
Nothing. He can't. He can't, because the masters behind him are all, supporters of
Yes.
Israel.
Yes.
So he basically
Yes.
has to shut up, because
Yes.
he cannot say something that is going to offend his masters. So
Yes.
that's the music.
Yeah.
That's the music that we're being served. Like you said, weaponized
Totally.
music that, without any message, music that doesn't teach you
Meaning.
anything, music with subliminal messages for you just to go fornicate or to go, fight or stuff like that. That's the type of music we have today. Very different from what we started with.
There are so many music awards. They've been around in an industry like in the US. I don't know what the Grammys are at now, but they've been around for years, for decades. In their entire existence, there's never been an award for the most impactful song or most impactful artist that actually delivered something important, And that's been a big question to me, that we talk about Song of the Year, we talk about, even albums of the year. And there are a number of albums that have been put out that were highly impactful. A simple example would be Damian Marley, Bob Marley's son.
Yeah. Daniel Marley and
together
Nas.
with
Nas.
Nas.
Yes.
That album, as an example, that's an impactful album. Every single track on there, every single message of that song, the musicality within every single song. But were you hearing it everywhere? No, not quite. Not as much as Chris Brown or, I don't know.
I mean, that's
The rest of
the
the artists
thing.
that are out there.
That's the thing. It's not that we don't have conscious artists. We do. But, because they, the music industry wants to show to them that, if you want to succeed, you have to sing about sex.
Follow our trend.
Yes, you have to follow the trend, sing about sex, violence. You have to say N-words. You have to be rude, like the Cardi B's, like the Nicki Minaj, if you want to make it into the industry. But if you come and talk about spirituality, about raising your vibration, about, talking about, like you were saying, Nas, I know I can be what I want to be.
There you go.
Empowering.
There you go. Yeah.
Music that empowers you. Even today, I listen to that song.
Yes.
My daughter growing up, like, when she was like 5, 6, I was putting that song.
Loved it.
And then she started to, she started to ask for the song. She started to ask for the song, because it's teaching you character,
Positivity.
Yes, it's positive. It's, something that uplifts people. So with something like that, they're not going to push it. They want us depressed. They want us anxious. They want us all the low vibration, because once again, the entities that they serve, like the music industry serve, that's their food, negative energy. That's the food that they feed them.
And with the power of music, you've got access to thousands and millions of people, because everybody gets music, right? It's the problem is the business, and it's business in all aspects of life. It's the same with agriculture. Our grandparents, you give them a piece of land as a farm, they would clear out a specific area where they're going to plant. But bring a agricultural business to the same piece of land, they will grade off everything, clear that piece of land, and expect things to grow without then the need for pesticides come in. The same way as music, in its purest form, it's uplifting, it's educational, it's informative, it's social commentary, it makes you think. But with the example of agriculture, you clear the ground, you kill the biodiversity, and then you want to plant anew, and therefore you need the pesticides and all these harmful chemicals to ensure that your crop grows. Whereas with music, artists now find themselves in a position where I've got this body of music, but now nobody wants to put it out there. And I'm told that if I want it out there, these are the things that I have to cover, or I have to tick these boxes. And if that's what you are born to do, and that's the only way to make a living, what do? That's where the concepts of selling your soul comes in.
Yeah. I mean, I know my husband has a friend who is like a doctor. He has a PhD, and his thesis basically he focused on Afrobeat. So he has a PhD in Afrobeat, if you can say. He studied Afrobeat, like African music, but focusing on Afrobeat. And I was talking to him. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I used to enjoy Afrobeat a lot, but nowadays it becomes very, very difficult to find some decent music that you can listen to in a family environment with your children, with your brother. It's so like there's so many disgraceful things that are being said. And he was saying, like,
Yeah.
he said exactly what you said, that, if you start to sing about, random things, or, things like problems about our society and stuff like that, who is going to listen to that? When he said that, I was like, this is the world that we are living in. We rather listen to violent things. We rather listen to, but we've been programmed that way. That's why when I understood what was happening, and when I learned about the solfeggio frequency, about the fact that, they
Yes.
can weaponize music the way you said, you listen, for you think that you're just listening to some song, but behind there's a music that speaks to your consciousness, to your subconsciousness, not even your consciousness, your subconsciousness. Music that is sending some, message there for you to feel sad. You think that you are feeling sad because
Yes.
you are listening to a song that is talking about breakup, for instance.
Right.
While
Right.
actually it's that the words plus the frequency used. So, it's like a recipe, basically. They
Yes.
put all the ingredients there for us to feel bad. Because once again,
Yes.
if you're not feeling well, you are very easy to control. You are
Totally.
very
I mean,
easy to
and
control.
it's the same with so it's music, it's movies, it's you can name it. And I'm not kidding when I say this. Today there is a formula. If you are a TV director, a movie director, and you want to put out a series, there's a formula that will tell you what elements you need to have for a show to stand a chance of being successful. The same as music. It's a frequency, it's a particular language or vocabulary that you use, it's a tempo thing. They've developed formulas for the music that is low vibration. And all of this is because there's no other interest but profit, nothing else. As to the impact on society, it's irrelevant. It's about how much money can I make, nothing more. So it's a really difficult place that we find ourselves in from that point of view, because music or artists have a responsibility to teach and awaken. but they're being disabled.
Yeah, definitely.
Deliberately.
Because it's not even them. It's not as if, they just wanted to go there and start, saying like, rude, like, to be, to say the N word.
To be crass.
Yes. It's not even them, but they, it's the people behind them, because they also, for instance, for black artists, you will find that, for them, they will be cursing from the beginning of the song until the end. We need to understand that there's also an image building. They're building the image of the black person who can't even speak. They can talk. All they know how, all they can say is just curse. You see? So they are building the image of the perfect savage. And, our artists, unfortunately,
Totally.
like you said, they feel like, oh, I want to be well known. I want to, earn a living singing. So I have to do and say whatever they're telling me to say. That's the sad reality. Yeah. And my brother, we could be sitting here for hours talking about, this topic, but I feel like, we need to wrap up. And sure. I just want to share, an experience that I had recently, because I feel like, it ties in very nicely with our discussion today. You were talking about the fact that, black people, our artists basically sing love songs, the most. And recently, because my husband, he used to be, he was born as a Christian, but as most of us, like, he is just building his way out of that, into just being spiritual and connecting with the divine without having to have a middleman, And so, even if he doesn't go to church anymore, sometimes he just feel like that he needs that, uplifting music, uplifting frequency. So he plays, gospel or something like, you just put it on the TV and do some stuff around the house. So, I was upstairs and I heard a song playing because he was playing it on the TV. I heard the song and I felt the urge to come down. So I came down, and when I came down, I heard the voice, because the song, like, the lady who was singing, I don't know if you know her, because I didn't know her before that day. She's called Sinash or Sinak, something like that. So I came down and she's singing that song, like, with so much emotion. I'm looking at the people, like, the audience and the people who are singing with her. And they were all black people, and they were, you could see, like, spirit working through them. And I heard in my voice, in my ear, I heard stolen energy in my ear, because they were singing about Jesus. I heard stolen energy. So basically, I didn't understand, I just, I remember breaking down in tears, but I didn't really understand stolen energy. I just, when I heard that voice, I just broke down in tears and I went into my bedroom. And when I went there, that's when I realized, I was like, oh, because, as black people, our voice, like you said, it comes naturally. Like, we are connected to spirit. We have spirit in our voice. When we speak, when we sing, especially those who can sing, when they sing, you can feel it, like, in every single part of your body, like your cells can feel the vibrations, the frequencies. And that energy, because it's only through that I understood that us as black people, we are basically the spiritual people par excellence, as they say in French. We are the most spiritual people. And, with that, our voice, like I said, is a tool. Is a tool that helps us basically to channel spirit. You see? So they are using that. Yes. They are using that energy. So because we don't know who we are, our energy is being used by the people who know its value. Because we don't.
Yes, stage performances. You like I said, I don't have a TV. We don't have a TV at home. We haven't had a TV. My kids don't know a TV at home. was it the Olympics? The opening ceremony of the Olympics, and more recently, what was it? Some award ceremony where people were talking about how that was a ritual, a demonic ritual. It wasn't the World Cup. I think it was the Olympics. The Olympics were like last year or so.
Yeah, I think so. What was it in Paris?
Yeah,
I heard about something like that as well. Yes.
I saw how people were commenting about the opening ceremony being a ritual, a demonic ritual. There was also a music awards somewhere again in the US recently where the same thing was being said, where people were saying that has gotten out of hand, that they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
No.
It's disgusting. But then as I'm speaking, you think of another flip side, the opposite of that is the Kendrick Lamar, what was it? The Super Bowl halftime performance, where that was a story of African Americans in America. Their story was, he practically told their story, and the purpose of it was to tell people to wake up and learn to understand that you are being controlled by a system and that you have power bigger than that of the system. You know, so you still find artists today who understand their purpose and their role, and they therefore use their platform positively. Unfortunately, with the Kendrick Lamar story is that he happens to be a brilliant writer and MC, and his head is screwed on right. So everything about him is about helping people of his yoke wake up and see life for what it is and aspire for their greater self. So I don't think it's something that will ever be killed. It'll always live. It'll always exist. It'll take a lot to completely suppress and eliminate that power, the power of our spirit. Because again, when you talk music, there's the sounds, there's the words, which are informed by the culture, and these things are all linked. So your language is a way to your culture. The language you sing in is your way into it. It gives a sense of the culture you live in, and your culture often leads to your spirituality. So you can't separate them. And there's still artists of that quality, of that caliber that exist. It is just that more of them have gone independent because the internet enables you to cut out the middleman. But they don't get the radio airplay that they need. Today in South Africa, you have artists who are Zulu culturally, and the Zulu culture being the well-known culture in South Africa has over the last 10 years really made a mark in the music and the fiber of society, so much that there's a couple of artists that I can think of right now who you have to see them on stage, similar to how you went to the KRS-One concert. If you were to see them on stage, you'd immediately get that, okay, he must be Zulu because of how he dresses. And then you listen to the music and you listen to the words that he uses and listen to the message that he's sharing, and you realize that it'll never die. And the beautiful thing that's happening in South Africa now is that more and more people are tapping into their culture. You can go to what is called the richest square mile in Africa, which is Sandton City, and you'll find a person or a young person walking around in some element of their traditional regalia on a Saturday afternoon with an expensive watch and expensive shoes, but a cultural element on their forehead or on their wrist, which never used to happen before. So there is that shift that's happening, and music has a huge role to play in helping people wake up, because it's deaf people get it. So it's an essential tool to our liberation as a people.
Yes, definitely, my brother. And, about the fact that you said that now they don't hide their rituals anymore. They show their rituals, they basically, I will say, if we're speaking in terms of, in biblical term, I think we will be talking about revelation time. They show you what they are. They show you basically their identity and their values and who they are, and it's for you basically to to decide what you want to make of that. You see, whether you want to continue to watch and consume their their diabolical stuff, or you want to look for things that are more aligned with your values and your where you want to go to. Because me, for instance, like I said, I used to love Afrobeat and listening to all those, and then when you understand that actually this music, is being used basically to there's some types of perversion basically of our music. When you look at the way that women basically are just used as tools, the value of women on those videos, you can't see any of that, you see. So for me,
Video vixens.
I'm like, I don't want to consume that anymore. I don't want to play that type of music in my house. I don't want to play low vibrational music in my house. So with that, when you start vibrating, in that frequency, when you're like, okay, enough is enough, then the universe starts to send you what you need. So for me, I'm discovering, I'm discovering artists, as you said, who are not mainstream. They're not mainstream, but they are providing me with the frequencies that are feeding my soul. And that's what I need. I don't need someone to come and
just going to say that.
I don't need someone to come and put sadness where there's no sadness. Because sometimes you can sit like this and you are sad. You don't even know why you are sad. Don't look, don't look any further. Just what was the last, what is the last song basically that you listened to? What is the last movie that you watched? All of those things, even after you consume them, now they start consuming you. You see, so we need to be we need to be very careful in that sense. My brother, once again, we need to wrap up. But before we do, I know that you are working on your first book, which is very exciting.
Oh, yes.
It's an exciting time because even me, I was showing you earlier, I received my book, which is going to be published soon.
Congrats again, by
yes,
the way.
Which is going to be published soon. It's the publication date is November 27th. But like I was saying, you are also working on yours. So can you just, tell us a little bit about the book and what it's about?
Well, in light of everything we've just spoken about, if you particularly look at the Black race, you could say, and I think most of us would agree, that there's a lot of brokenness with everything that we've endured. We're broken people. However, still resilient, still striving to live and reclaim our place in the world. I've actually coined this phrase that goes, all fragmented things are broken. Right? We agree that if something is fragmented, it's broken. But not everything that's broken is necessarily fragmented. So there is always hope. There's always a possibility to, a broken piece can be fragmented into 4 pieces that you can put together. So as broken as we may be, we can still mend ourselves. And I think we're living in a time where we are starting to I mean, we in South Africa lived through 162, no, not even 162 years, 252 years, I think, of since the first law that was passed that disabled us from being who we are spiritually, called the Witchcraft Suppression Act. Many people talk about the Act of 1972 or 74, but the first one was in 1890 something. And then it got amended again in the early 1900s, and then again by the apartheid government in the 70s, all meant to derail you from your spirituality and your culture, in essence. Today, if you wanted to, in South Africa, at any given day, you could go through all the radio stations or TV channels. You will not go through 5 without coming across something that is speaking indigenous knowledge, whether it's a healer who will have people come to them on TV and he'll resolve their problems or help them, guide them to resolving the problem, or on radio where healers will come and literally take people's calls live and give you an answer instantly, and each time I catch them, I realize that nobody ever denies what they're being told. They actually agree that you're right. Yes, that is true. And you can go on YouTube now. So, when people invoke the spirits of their ancestors, they use candles, because candle is a sign of life, right? The same way you find candles in church. And different colored candles have different meanings and purposes. You can go on YouTube today if it's your first time trying to you set up a shrine in your home, you try and connect with your ancestors. You can find a video today that will explain what the white candle represents, what's a blue candle for, what a yellow candle for, what a pink one or purple or whatever. And this is knowledge that had 3 laws enacted to suppress it. But here we are. It's alive. It never died. They didn't succeed. Which, for me, speaks to the fact that if we all agree that Africa is the cradle of humanity, there's no way another human could kill it, whichever way you try to. So, like I was saying in the beginning, that you get sent to school, you get told to speak more English, and then you start speaking English to people who look like you, and you grow and you go into the working world, and English is the language that's used. And then you have children and you realize that, I can't pass on my language because I'm not used to speaking it. Now I have to think to translate. And that realization makes you realize a whole lot more of what we are running the risk of losing. Many little children today speak English. I mean, I know parents that have tried where both parents are different cultures, different languages. And this parent will speak to the child in their mother tongue, and the dad will speak to the children in his mother tongue. So the children understand 2 languages over and above English, but they only respond in English. As much as they grew up hearing these languages that their parents speak, they only speak English. So you realize the depth of the erosion of our languages. And the moment you lose your language, you lose your culture. And the moment you lose your culture, you've lost your spirituality. And when you don't have your spirituality, then I can sell you anything. I can tell you what to believe in. So the book essentially is focused on rebuilding the African family, because that's the foundation of society. The family is where values, knowledge are imparted, and where culture lives. Especially in Africa, coming from multi-generational setups, where it was essentially families were archives in action, living archives, because you live with your grandmother. You see how she makes a fire, or how she cooks something, or how the stories that she tells, because she's there all the time. And I get it, and then my kids get it, and they can pass it on to their kids. That was obviously broken. Men were taken to the mines to go work in the cities away from the rural areas. And then because they're out there for so long, they end up setting up second families. and now you have an absent father in this side. The family was literally broken deliberately. In fact, apart from colonization, what apartheid achieved and aimed to do was to break up the family. So when you start looking at these things, and there's good and bad, but the benefit of having stayed away from my language and my culture made me look at it now with a new set of eyes and with curiosity, where you start paying attention to, why do we call your mother's sister or your father's brother aunt and uncle? In our languages, there are particular names for them. Like the aunt, your father's sister will be Rahadi, and your mom's brother will be Malome, or the sister will be aunt, Mangwani. When you start listening to what does that word actually mean, you start realizing that there is an actual meaning behind it. And that meaning comes with a role of responsibilities. And, people will tell you the worst people in family to run to are your aunts, because they have the power. They carry your father's DNA. They shared the same womb with your dad. So they have a lot more access to you spiritually because they come from the same place your father came from, right? The same way your father's brother's children, from our point of view, are your siblings, because you could interchange your father and his brother, the same surname, same DNA, same biology, versus your father's sister's children, because then she has a husband who comes from somewhere else. So those are your actual cousins. And started realizing little things like that, because now to most an average person, any relative is a cousin. Everybody's a cousin. You don't understand that there's a distinction that we made. And essentially, to be able to have societies that are functional again, it has to start at home. And to be able to rebuild the home, you need to understand what the home is made up of. So the book essentially focuses on that. It's focusing on the family unit, what makes it up, what are the names used for family members, and the structure thereof. So one of my late teachers, Muchologo, whom you know well, explained it to me this way. He said the family was designed in 3 concentric rings. So there's a small ring, there's a bigger one, and a larger one that covers that's bigger than the other 2. The smallest ring in the middle, in the center, that's your family. That's your mother and your father and your siblings. The middle ring is your parents' siblings, their families that they come from, their household, the households that they come from. That's the middle ring. And the outer ring is your clan, in essence, where your grandparents come from, and their cousins and their aunts, so it's the larger clan. And one of the things that kind of triggered me to look into this, I was already fascinated, but he said that structure was inspired by the porcupine. The porcupine with the quills has 3 layers of defense. The quills are in different sizes of thickness and length. The first defense, it's thin, longish quills that are meant to ward you off. When it shoots them, they will cause a bit of pain, but the idea is to deter you. But if you insist, the second line of defense then kicks in, which then stings a little bit more. They go a little bit deeper, they're a little bit bigger in diameter. And if that doesn't work, the last line of defense is fatal. So in a similar way, your family is your primary go-to. When your child trips and they hurt themselves, they call mommy. If mommy's not there, they'll call daddy. That's the first line of defense. But in times of war and destabilization, in the event or a natural disaster, and say your family gets wiped out, you would run to the second ring, which is where your parents come from, your uncles, your aunts. That's who you run to. In the event that they themselves can't be located, and you are wandering, out there looking for shelter or anything, and somebody opens up their door to you, one of the first things that they will ask you, our grandparents always do, is, whose child are you? Where do you come from? Who are you? And it's not about your name. This is where now the clan name comes in handy. The moment you mention your clan name, they will know exactly where you belong, so that you can never find yourself lost. That's the whole point of it. It's so that you can never find yourself lost. And I think it's hard to deny for anybody that African people globally are lost to a large extent. More so the ones in the diaspora, because they were cut off. But the positive thing about it is that if you want to know, for example, about pre-colonial Africa, people who've written the most about it are Americans. A lot of pre-colonial African knowledge that's written is actually written by American people or students, people who studied in America. So most of it sits there. Again, speaking to what I was saying, that me being separated from my language, I come back to it with a new set of eyes, curiosity, a fresh mind willing to dissect everything and decode everything. And that is our foundations and the opportunity we have now to restore that which was broken deliberately. That's why my theme is really all fragmented things are broken, but not everything that's broken is necessarily fragmented. It's trying to provide a manual that kind of gives a person a sense of the family structure. And we see Indian people do it, where it's multi-generational. But that is not their creation. It's something that started where humanity began. But those original people have lost it because of the history that they've endured. And fortunately, not all of it is lost. A lot is lost, but not everything is lost. And I'm one of those people that are trying to piece the knowledge together, because not necessarily every single cultural or tradition will be relevant today, but it's about the essence, it's about the insight that one is trying to extract from it. So you look at KwaZulu-Natal, where it's predominantly Zulu people. They have what is called an annual reed dance. I'm sure you've seen images where young virgins participate holding reeds. You need to be a virgin to participate in it. But it is not necessarily upheld as it used to be and as it should be. And the consequence of that is KwaZulu-Natal is the epicenter of HIV, AIDS, and infections. So if one stuck to the value, the ethos, the thinking behind that tradition of abstinence and preservation of one's virginity, this problem today that they're facing will not exist. So that's a silly, simple, easy example that kind of shows the intelligence of indigenous knowledge, that it's meant to carry you through time. Doesn't matter what happens. Technology will change, attitudes will change, but if you were to follow that as a principle, you will survive anything. And my intention is just to really bring that information to the fore, nothing more. What people do with it, of course, is up to them. But the idea is, I've had the space, I've had the time, and the curiosity to research and try and compile this information into an easily digestible and accessible format that anybody can pick up and rebuild and carry us forward. Because it's, at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it's about continuity. It's about ensuring that you've written a book, I'm in the process, I want to learn from you to get to where you are. So the path that you've walked gives me a better chance of success. And that's what indigenous knowledge is.
You know what, my brother? It's really powerful. Everything that you said there, because it's like you said. All the trauma basically that our ancestors went through, and that we are still going through today. From slavery to colonization to neo-colonization that we are living today. Everything basically is designed to destroy the family unit, to make sure that, there's no such thing. That's, once again, we're talking about fornication, like the music industry, just promoting fornication. So just fornication, and then everyone goes their own ways, and then you have children who have to basically grow up without their two parents and stuff. So, we are creating the balance basically of the family unit is being destroyed. It has been destroyed. And if you are not strong, and if you don't understand what those people have been trying to do, then you just fall for it. Because when you see, for instance, here in Europe, that they are actually giving compensation to single moms. So you find some people who actually live together, couples that are together, but they're going to present, like the woman is going to go to the government and say that she's single. So you see, things like that, like values that are getting lost. And so we really need, we definitely need your research. We need that input. We need to see basically, how you bring all those things together so that we can learn, to go back to our roots, basically.
Like I said earlier, our word for an equivalent of God translates to the root of a human being, that is essentially a spirituality. So, Nas and Damien Marley have a song where Damien says, what's a line without tooth, a tree without root, a lie without truth. So it's essentially trying to find our roots and understanding their structure and how they function, because roots come in different forms. Different trees have different types of roots, different plants have different types of roots. Definitely. And understand your rooting. Because once you understand that, it doesn't matter how strong a wind, you will be able to withstand it. And there's going to be many winds to come. If we think we've seen the worst, it's about to get uglier, because what business is now doing, if I may call it business, or the powers that be, it's no longer about race. It's about humanity. There's a war against humanity.
Yes.
It's just that initially it was us as the initial targets, primary targets, to embolden them further by having racism, essentially. But it is no longer about white people against black people. It's them against us.
Yes, my brother. Definitely, I agree with you.
Consolidation.
I agree with you. But the way that they achieve their evil agendas is by dividing us and by weakening us. Us as the black race, obviously we have a very, very powerful and very, rich history. Because, no matter how they are trying to make us believe that we have no history, we have no greatness, we know that we are a great people. We know that our ancestors, were great people. And, you don't need to go far. Like, they've been trying to destroy all the traces of that greatness. But look at Egypt. They can't destroy that one. And they will tell you,
they couldn't.
They will tell you, oh, Egypt was built by, Mediterranean. Oh, yeah. My brother, just to tell you that, they can make us believe that we are lost. But until we ourselves decide and believe that we are lost, we are not lost. All the knowledge is around for us to go and collect the way you are doing. It's in us as well. When it comes to spirituality, that knowledge is deep within us. So we haven't lost anything. It's just like a puzzle that we have to go look for the different pieces and put together. But we are not lost in any kind of ways until you decide that you are lost yourself. That's the problem. And
totally agree. actually, until you decide that you're
Yes.
lost. And for you to make that decision, you would have to lack knowledge and information
Exactly.
of self. So, you speaking about Egypt, which is as a last thought, I only discovered this probably about 3 years ago, that in South Africa, there is what is call it the birthplace of the sun, translated. But as usual, some guy named Adam, who apparently discovered it, has named it after himself. It's called Adam's calendar.
Oh,
This is considered the oldest calendar, a man-made structure on Earth, and it's a calendar.
yeah. Because when
Right.
you said the native name, I was like, but Adam's calendar, like we all have heard about it. Yeah, obviously.
There you go. So it's considered the oldest man-made structure, which means it predates the pyramids. And the interesting thing about it is, most people discovered it in the last 5 years, really, like in the mainstream in South Africa.
You know, this topic that we have just touched on, I'd love to invite you back, because that's something that's completely, I mean, it fascinates me, the different things, because until, like, when you decide that, oh, I want to find out about who I am, and you start to do some research, you see that Egypt is the most prominent one, because it's the one that's still standing. The pyramids are still
It's the
there for us
pinnacle.
to see. But when you do your research, like the empires that were there, the Mansa Musa,
Before.
the great people like who were there, the warriors, the kings, the history, the very rich history of Africa. They don't put
The
that.
female warriors.
They don't put that in their history book. So please, my brother, let me invite you back to have that chat. Because today, if we go on, we can stay here for 3 hours.
Sure.
So
That's true.
yeah, so
That is
guys,
true.
we're going to stop this conversation here today. But like I said, our brother Makara, because I just love the energy, the synergy that we have, when we're talking about, because I have the impression that, he, when I'm saying something, he will bring something like add more, more shape and more form, basically, to my, to whatever I'm talking about. And he does the same for me. I mean, we do that for each other. So I definitely want to invite you back, my brother. We will talk about that after this. And once again, our brother Makara is working on his book that we just mentioned. So once the book is ready for publication, and once it's published, our brother will also come back here, to tell us more, because, at this stage, he's still writing the book. So he's still in the research phase. But when the book is ready, he will come here to expose, further ideas, and to basically let us know where we can go and get it. So my brother, I thank you so much for your time today and for the wisdom that you shared with us. Okay, everyone. So thank you for following this episode until the end. Make sure to subscribe to help us grow the channel, like and share with anyone whom you feel will enjoy this episode or will learn something from this episode. So, thank you again, Brother Makara. And we shall see you in the next episode of the Self Upgrade Podcast.
Thank you very much.